A very good afternoon, dear students. I, Professor Shaurya Shah, welcome you once again to the lecture of Advanced Accounting and Auditing Paper 2, that is also known as Corporate Accounting. Dear students, as we had discussed in the last lecture about the liquidation chapter, we studied about the various theories of liquidation chapter. We saw the tips for solving the sums also. We saw various kinds of format for preparing the entire liquidator's statement of receipt and payment. Now today, as you must have already received the notes which I have provided in your Google Classroom, it is having all the things which we have discussed till now, which will help you to solve the sums also. It is also having the key points. It is having the format to solve the sum, a specimen for that. And again, today's question I have already put up in your Google Classroom in a separate file, right? So again, I hope all of you must be having that particular long sum which we are going to solve today, which consists of your 14 marks. As students, it is the basic sum. First, we will discuss the entire sum and then we will start solving it, right? But before discussing it, I just want to have a quick revision over the points which we have studied till now, so you can easily solve the sum on the basis of these points. Now, whenever the sum will be there, as we will see right now, students, it will be always two parts will be there in the format. One will be receipt side, second will be payment side, right? So when we will solve the sum, we will analyze it on the basis of receipt or payment. Now whenever the payment is there, just keep in mind, students, it will be always on the basis of the following sequence. The very first will be the full amount paid to secured creditors. Whenever you receive the money, you will pay first of all to the secured creditors, and then you will pay it to the liquidation expenses, whatever expenses, legal charges, or any expenses which are paid by the company to liquidate the business. Then you will pay to liquidators remuneration. This remuneration will be based upon certain percentage, either on total realization of money or either on assets sold, depending upon the sum. Then students, you will be paying it to the preferential creditors. I suppose everyone is now clear with the concept of preferential creditors who are included in it. We had seen around 4 to 5 categories, which includes that. That includes your Provident Fund, that includes your gratuity, that includes your workman's salary, so on and so forth. Then you have floating charges, that is debenture holders or other creditors having floating charge over the assets of the company. So you start paying with secured creditors, then you pay liquidation expenses, then you pay legal charges and remuneration, then preferential creditors, then debenture holders. After you pay to all of them, the remaining amount is paid to unsecured creditors, those creditors who have no security over any assets of the company and who are not included in any of the above headings. They are considered as unsecured creditors. We already know the concept, students. It includes your normal creditors, it includes your trade payables, it includes your any other creditors which are not paid here, right? And after that, any amount remaining is paid to preference shareholders and at last equity shareholders. So I suppose each and everyone is clear with this part. So we can start solving the long sum which you are having right now, right? So what students we will do, before starting the long sum, we will discuss the entire sum. I suppose everyone is having the sum with you. Okay, fine. So now starting with the sum. So this is the sum which I have provided you already, dear students. Now whenever your sum will be there, the type or the format will remain the same. You will be given a vertical balance sheet to solve the sum. On the balance sheet completion, liabilities and assets, there will be certain adjustments which are given that you need to solve, right? So on the basis of adjustment, we will be again posting it in our format of the sum, right? This is just the basic sum for your understanding. Same type of sums will be asked, but with some twisted points and some additional information. Fine. Now starting with the very first information, always when we are doing any kind of accounts in corporate, right? So always make a habit of analyzing the sum, what is given and what you need to post. As it is the first sum, students, we will be doing it a little bit slow so that you understand it. First we are discussing, then we will start solving together. I hope everyone is having the question with you. Fine. What is the sum all about? On 1st April 2020, Padmavat Limited went into voluntary liquidation. Our all sums will be your voluntary liquidation only, right? Just keep in mind that thing, students. Voluntary liquidation. The balance sheet of the company is as under, right? So the balance sheet of the company is as under on the date, remember 31st March 20. Now what will be their equity and liabilities, as it is a vertical format balance sheet? 2000 equity shares of 100 each. So what is your equity capital? 2 lakh. When we will pay equity capital? At the end. 10%, 10,000 preference shares of 100 each fully paid up. So the amount is your, again we can say 1 lakh rupees, right? So this is the amount basically. I suppose it is 1000 shares. Dear students, consider it as 1000 shares of 100 each. That will be your total of 1 lakh, right? 10 is extra. Just keep in mind that thing. Typing error is there of university sum. Then the next is your reserves and surplus. So when the students, we will pay equity shareholder at last. When we'll pay preference shares, we will pay it at second last. Then you have general reserve, 4000 rupees, right? So general reserve, what we will do to it, we will see. Long-term borrowings. What is long-term borrowings? That is debentures, 15%, that is of 2 lakh. So debentures are your floating charge, which I told you, right? So the again we can say floating charge debentures will be paid after your preferential creditors. 15% is the rate of interest. So we will see whether the interest is paid or not. If the interest is not paid, then the outstanding interest will be paid up in the debenture itself. Other long-term liability, bank loan. Now see in bracket, students, very carefully. Bank loan bracket is given against investment. So bank loan is taken against the security of investment. So it is a secured loan, we can say, or we can term it as secured creditors. So what is the amount? 80,000. So any information will be given in the adjustment for sure that investments are sold and bank loan is paid. So keep in mind. Analyze in this way, students, each and every point. The sum will be very easy for you all. Current liability, creditors. We all know creditors is a unsecured creditors paid before your preference shares. Other current liability, outstanding debenture interest, right? How much it is? 30,000. So if I calculate 15% debentures on 2 lakh rupees, so calculate, students, 2 lakh into 15% gives you 30,000. So it is correct. For 1 year, we have not paid the debenture interest. So it will be alongly paid with the debentures. Next is your outstanding salary of clerks. Now this is the important point from where you start, right? So preferential creditors and secured creditors. Now two options you are having. We had seen that outstanding salary of clerks, and whenever the months are given and the amount is given, always keep in mind they are preferential creditors, right? So we studied one point that the salary of 4 months or 20,000 maximum you have to pay. So here the salary is 18,000 of 3 months for of 3 clerks for 3 months. So can I say per month, that is your, again we can say per clerk, it is only 6,000. So entire amount will be paid in your preferential creditors, that is 18,000. Salary of workmen, 18,000. Now keep in mind, dear students, we saw in secured creditors that salary of workmen is covered under your Workmen's Wages Act, right? So it is decided by the government. Whenever a salary of workmen is there, it will be always your secured creditors that you will pay at first. Short-term provisions, you have Provident Fund. Provident Fund is again your preferential creditors, right? So when you solve more and more sums, you will be very clear under which head which things comes, right? So just keep in mind this thing we are just discussing, so that when we solve the sum, it will be easy for you. Moving on, the total is your 9 lakh. Moving on to the asset side, the very first is your building, 2 lakh. Okay, furniture, 2 lakh 40,000 is given. The machinery is 2 lakh 40,000. Pardon, furniture is 4,000. Non-current investment is 1 lakh. So what is non-current investment? They are the investment which are pledged against bank loan. So investment are of 1 lakh and bank loan was of 80,000. Right? So 20,000 is the extra value. Anything must be given in the sum for that. We will see. Stock is 3,22,900. Debtors 24,000. Cash and cash equivalent 9,100. Always remember your sum will start with the cash and cash equivalent, right? Always, because you have balance. Whenever you have cash balance, you will sell the assets, you will receive the balance, and out of that balance you need to pay, because we are closing down the account, students. There will be no carry forward. At the day of liquidation, we are closing our books of accounts. Fine. Now the next thing here is the information which is given, that needs to be studied very, very thoroughly, because on the basis of this information only you will have certain kind of solving of your sums. Fine. So this thing you need to do. What is it? The very first is prepare the liquidator's receipt and payment statement from the following details. So you need to prepare the receipt and payment statement, that we know. Now the very first information itself says the bank has sold the investments at the book value and surplus amount of 20,000 is returned to liquidator. What is the book value of bank loan, dear students? It is 80,000, right? And what is the book value of investments? It is 1 lakh rupees. So what bank has done? Bank has sold this 1 lakh rupees. They have taken their 80,000 rupees, and the balance of 20,000 is returned to liquidator. So one entry in our account on the receipt side will be of this 20,000, which are returned to the liquidator. Fine. Okay. The assets realized by liquidator are as follows. So these are the assets which liquidator has realized. So what we will do on the receipt side, we will add all these 5 assets with their respective new values, because you have received, suppose you must have sold building 3 lakh, furniture you have received 2,000, debtors you have received 20,000. So as a liquidator, if you have sold this, you are preparing a receipt statement. The cash flow is incoming. Next is your liquidation expenses, 15,000. Liquidation expenses comes after your secured creditors are paid on the payment side of liquidator statement. Liquidator is entitled to get a remuneration of 5% on the amount realized by, right? Now, dear students, just be very careful while solving this sum. On what base the liquidator's remuneration is given, that you need to calculate. So here, liquidator is entitled to get 5% on amount realized by him. Now, this is the entire amount which is realized by him. This is again is paid by the bank. Investments are not sold by the liquidator, right? So we'll see when we solve the sum, but just keep in mind this. In the next is you have to pay 2-year dividend to cumulative preference shareholders. Now preference shareholders are cumulative, right? What do you mean by cumulative, students? 1 year, if any loss happens and dividend is not paid, it accumulates. Next year you have to pay dividend for 2 years. So here preference shares are your 10% and the value is 1 lakh. So 1 lakh into 10% is 10,000. So for 2 years means you have to pay 20,000 as your preference dividend to preference shareholders along with your preference shares. And the last is debenture holders were paid on 39. What is the date of liquidation, students? The date of liquidation is 1st April. So even after again we can say 1/4/20 to 39/20, you have around 6 months. So additional interest which you saw in the format of liquidation is to be paid, right? I suppose everyone is clear now with the base of the sum. Now we'll start solving with that. What you need to do is you need to be ready with the format of liquidator statement, which I have already provided you in the last lecture also, and which is there in the notes which I have given you, right? So prepare 4 columns. The first will be receipt, amount, payment, amount, and the heading will be liquidator's statement of receipt and payments. We'll be start solving the sum one by one. Keep the sum in front of you. Either you can take it out from the printout or you can note down the sum in your book so that you can directly start solving. Fine. So we'll be start solving the sum. Just I have also prepared the format for you people. Simultaneously we'll be posting the entry which are given. So dear students, I suppose everyone is now ready with the format. We'll be starting with the sum one by one. We will follow the format and we will follow the sequence which we are going to have. The very first thing, as we discussed in the sum, will be your cash balance. So what you will write, dear students, on the debit side, that is your receipt side, you will first write down the balance of cash which is given in the balance sheet, right? So how much it is? 9,100 rupees. So what you will do is, on the very first of your receipt side, you will write down to cash balance. How much my cash balance will be? It will be 9,100 rupees. Whatever is given in the balance sheet, I will write it down. I hope everyone is visible with the sum. Fine. Now after you have written your cash balance, the very first step you need to complete on the receipt side is to write down whatever amount is received by the liquidator, right? So what you will write down, dear students? The very first thing after cash balance will be to assets realized. To assets realized. Whatever assets you have realized at whatever value, you will write down particularly under this head, right? So what are the assets? The very first amongst that is your, don't forget to write, we had seen one point, that is your surplus of investment, right? Investment were of 1 lakh rupees, creditors were of 80,000. So what we had studied in the adjustment, dear students, creditors have returned the 20,000 balance, right? So surplus of investment, first of all you will write down here. Surplus of investment, in bracket for your understanding I am writing 1 lakh minus 80,000 rupees. So for the surplus which we have received, I have written it here. After that, in your adjustment given, all the assets are given at the particular value, right? So what you need to do, students, 5 assets are given: building, furniture, machinery, stock and debtors. You need to write down all the assets in their respective value, right? So what I'll do is, after your surplus of investment, I will write in sequence. The very first, as you can see, you have received rupees 3 lakh for building. Then you have received, students, 2,000 for furniture. Then students, you have received 3 lakh rupees again for machinery. Then you have received rupees 2,60,000 for stock. This information is given in your adjustment, students. 2,60,000 for stock. And last, 20,000 rupees are received for debtors. So always make a habit of solving the sum in the following sequence only, so that you follow the same format in every sum and it will be easy for you people to study. I hope it is clear, everyone. Fine. So we have completed, students, the receipt side of your liquidator statement. Only two things are there. Always remember, the first will be always your cash balance, which is already given in the balance sheet, and the second will always be the assets which is realized by the liquidator. Among that, if any surplus is there, we will consider that thing. I suppose it is clear. So receipt side will be always easier for you. Now we'll be starting with the payment side. Now when you start with the payment side, students, the very first thing you need to do is to pay to secured creditors, right? Now in this sum, if you see, secured creditors are already paid, right? So there were two types of secured creditors, I told you. The very first were the bank loan. So bank loan have already sold the investments and it is paid. So no entry for bank loan in our statement. After that, I told you one more thing in your balance sheet, if you can see, that is salary of workmen, that is 18,000 rupees, right? So students, salary of workmen, if you want to note down, you can note it down. It is according to your Companies Act, workmen's dues are always ranked along with your secured creditors, right? And Wages Act is also there. So remember, whenever it is wages, then it is in your preferential creditors. But when it is salary of workmen, it will be paid under the head of secured creditors, right? So first and the foremost thing we will pay is by outstanding workman's salary by outstanding workman's salary. How much it is? In balance sheet very clearly it is given 18,000 rupees. So I will write down by outstanding workman's salary 18,000 rupees. Is it clear everyone? Fine. Now the next thing, after your secured creditors are done, the first thing you need to pay is your liquidation expenses and liquidators remuneration. Now in this sum very clearly the liquidation expenses are also given, students. Liquidation expenses stands to 15,000 rupees. So I will write down by liquidation expenses 15,000 rupees. After you pay the liquidation expenses, dear students, you need to pay liquidators remuneration also at this stage only. Now, is there any information given for liquidators remuneration, students? Yes. In the adjustment, the information is given that liquidator is to be paid 5% remuneration on the amount realized by him. Now, if you see carefully, amount realized by him will be on the receipt side, you will be finding it, right? So, what is the total amount received by the liquidator will be found out by the doing the total of the receipt side, right? Including your surplus from investments. So if you do the total of all this amount, students, it will stand to 9,02,000 rupees. 9,02,000 rupees. You don't have to write in this way. It is for your understanding. I am giving you the information that on 9,02,000 we will be paying the remuneration. So what I'll do is I'll calculate remuneration on 9,02,000. How many percentage? 5%. So on 9,02,000 I have paid 5%. So this will give me the remuneration of 45,100. Keep a calculator with you always. We need to calculate each and every amount. So liquidator's remuneration is 9,200 into 5%. I suppose each and everyone is clear with the part. Okay. Now starting, once you have paid your secured creditors, once you have paid liquidation expenses, then you have paid liquidators remuneration. Now starts the main part after that is your by preferential creditors. By preferential creditors, right? So preferential creditors, just remember the points. What do you include in preferential creditors, students? In our sum, what is being given? The very first thing in the balance sheet I can see is without any doubt Provident Fund. So write down Provident Fund first of all. Provident Fund is my 50,000 rupees given in the balance sheet. I will write down the same amount, Provident Fund. Always make a habit of writing the things you know the first as per the preference of the some students. So Provident Fund I have written. The second thing I can find in that particular preferential creditors is the salary of the clerks. Just now only we discussed in the sum that outstanding salary of clerks is 3 clerks for 3 months. It is below 18,000, right? So our threshold is 20,000 per clerk, that is per employer. So there is no issue. So I will pay the entire 18,000 amount of salary of clerk. So the entire amount of salary of clerk will be paid at this stage, students, right? Now after paying to the preferential creditors, the next thing comes, you must be remembering in the format is your by debentures or by the securities having floating charge. So what you will write down is by debentures. Now in debentures you have 3 things, students. If you see the sum very carefully, the very first thing you are having is your debentures itself. Then the second thing you are having is the interest on debentures, that is for 1 year. And the third thing you are having, we saw that debentures are paid on which date? Our company is liquidated on 1st April 2020. Debentures are paid on 30th September 2020. So for 6 months, we need to pay them the additional interest, right? So what do you include in that, dear students? The very first thing I will write down is by debentures. What is the amount of debentures I need to pay? That is 2 lakh. I need to pay interest on it also. So I will write down interest on debentures for 1 year, that is 2 lakh into 15%. So 2 lakh into 15% stands 30,000. 2 lakh into 15% stands 30,000. I need to pay, dear students, one more additional interest on this also. Why additional interest? It is from the period of, I will write it in a different color so that you understand, from 1/4/20 to 39/20. That is my 6 months. So what I'll pay is 2 lakh into 15% into 6 divided by 12. Right? This is for the last year students. So additional interest of mine will be how much? Calculate it very quickly. It will be your 15,000 rupees. It will be exactly half of this amount. So 15,000 rupees. Now once everything is paid, you need to pay to the unsecured creditor students, right? So unsecured creditors by, I will write down unsecured creditors by unsecured creditors. How much is my unsecured creditors? Just go through the balance sheet very quickly, students. What is given in the liability side? Once you post everything, again check once whether anything is left out or not. In your non-current liabilities, we have taken debentures. In your bank loan, we have again posted as the investment are sold. Creditors, yes, we will take. Debenture interest already paid, salary is already paid, workmanship salary is already paid, and PF is already paid, right? So what I can find in the question is only trade payables, that is creditors, 2 lakh rupees. So my unsecured creditors will be 2 lakh rupees. I suppose it is clear to each and every student. Fine. Now once everything is paid, you will pay it to the remaining preference share holders. Now again student, I would have directly paid the capital to the preference shareholders, but one information is given. The dividend on preference shares is in arrears for 2 continuous years, right? So first of all, I will pay the capital to the preference shareholders. I can see it from the balance sheet, that is 1 lakh rupees. Now after paying 1 lakh rupees, I will also pay the dividend accumulated for 2 years. So dividend accumulated for 2 years, students. What is the dividend? The preference shares is 10%. So 10% of 1 lakh into 2 years will give me the dividend of 20,000 rupees. So I have paid the dividend also. Remember students, in this sum, the company is solvent enough to pay the debts. That is why it is, everything is paid. But in some of the, we can say the sums, the company will start paying from here till here. If the funds are again in shortage, then the last person will be paid is debentures, right? Many a times it happens that unsecured are also paid and the shareholders are partly paid up only. So we will pay the amount of money which we are already having, fine. That only will be paid and the company will be closed down. Fine. In this sum, we have paid the preference shares also. Now, before going to equity shareholders payment, we will first check how much money we are having right now, right?
So what you need to do is, you need to do as the shares are already fully paid up, we cannot call up more capital. There will be sums in which again the calls will be made up so that the money is received out of it, right? So what we'll do is, we will do the total of the receipt side. I suppose the total of the receipt side I've done is 9,11,100. Kindly check students whether it is the same or not. 9,11,100. So from this receipt I will deduct all my payments, and the balance figure which I am getting will be paid finally to equity shareholders. The balance figure will be finally paid to equity shareholders, right? So what is the balance figure? In this sum we are getting exact 2 lakh rupees, which is the amount actually in the balance sheet also, right? I suppose, fine. So my sum gets tally, that is 9,11,100 rupees is the total which I am getting in my liquidator's receipt and payment statement. You can check your sum also, dear students. So what we have done is, we have posted each and everything which is given in the sum. Every long sum will be same like this only. You need to first write down the cash balance, then you need to write down the assets realized, then you will write down the whichever the amount is given in the balance sheet and the sum. Then you will start payment of the, first of all we can say secured creditors, then you will pay liquidation expenses, then you will pay the liquidator's remuneration, then we can say preferential creditors, then debentures, then unsecured creditors, and so on and so forth. I suppose everyone must have solved the sum very clearly. If any doubts, you can put up any point of time in Google Classroom. You should have the sum with you students ready, and you should remember the concepts and the format of it, right? Format is very simple. In every lecture, we will be solving around 2 sums practical of VNSGU. I'll be giving you in advance in Google Classroom so that you can start preparing the format and you can go through the sum once a while. Fine. So I suppose it is enough for today, students. If any queries, any doubts, you can ask in Google Classroom. This is Professor Shaurya Shah teaching you Advanced Accounting and Auditing Paper 2, Sybcom Semester 3. Thank you very much, students. Have a great day ahead. Take care.